Right now, the most important number on every One Piece reader's mind is the number 16. And this is gonna get big. This, I think I nailed it, so stick around for the entire video, hopefully, because, ooh, we're gonna get deep, really deep.
Lovely.
In the latest chapter of One Piece, 1060, judgment was delivered onto the Lulusia Kingdom, Old Testament style. 16 death rays from an unknown flying object rained down and destroyed the entire kingdom, bedrock and all. It's an event worthy of a passage in Bartholomew Kuma's Bible, without a doubt. And by itself, the 16 death rays don't necessarily mean that much. But then people notice that the amount of death rays used to destroy Lucia Kingdom is also the same number of giant string, let's call them skewers, that Doflamingo creates for his god thread, which he calls the 16 holy assassin bullets. So now our minds are supercharged, like there's some AAA batteries, Energizer Bunny style in our brains. Hold on now. 16 death rays, 16 holy bullets. Why 16? What's going on there, Oda? And now we have to elevate our minds to a whole new level. In the wise words of a very ancient scholar, Markiplier, it's big brain time. So going deeper when it comes to the number 16 in the story of One Piece, the number 16 is also the same number of times Luffy rang the Oxbell in chapter 594 to mourn, of course, the death of Ace, but also to send the 3D2Y message out to the Strat crew. Brand new in that same chapter states that it is custom to ring the bell only 2 times to mourn someone's passing, but 16 times is a direct challenge to the authority of the world government. Again, why 16 times? The number 16 is also referred to in the Doflamingo flashback in chapter 763 when Doflamingo, Rocinante, and their father Homing are being strung up by a window over a fire. One man cries out, and I quote in the viz, "My sons were only 5 and 2 years old, and for the so-called crime of walking across their path, the Celestial Dragon shot them 16 times with a pistol." That clearly wasn't just a heinous event, but also a statement. 16 times these poor kids were shot. Why 16? Now again, these are some in-story references to number 16, but we can go even deeper. So people have noted too that the name Emu, broken up into parts, also means the number 16. The Japanese E or Ichi we 1, and then the Mu or Mutsu would be 6, based on the Kinyomi reading of Japanese, apparently. I'm not Japanese, so you guys let me know if I'm wrong about that one. And if you actually remove the zeros from the chapter One Piece, 1060, you get the number, of course, 16. And we can even jump back to chapter 472. And this, of course, is NL content. Yes. Always love the NL content. People have noted that if you actually look in the top left corner of the mural, the sun image, if you actually complete the sun, you get 16 spiral embers around the sun. And given the age of these murals, this would indicate, if true, that the number 16 was important even all the way back then. And then finally, something that's very interesting that actually may tie into the next upcoming island is that if you count the number of islands that most of the Strat crew have been to together as a group for the whole Grand Line, then the upcoming island is actually going to be the 16th island on the journey. Woo! Hold on now.
Hold up.
One by one. 1 is Whiskey Peak, 2 is Little Garden, 3 is Drum Island, 4 is Alabasta, 5 is Jaya, 6 is Skypiea, 7 is Long Ring Long Land, 8 is Water 7, 9 is Enies Lobby, 10 is Shaboni Archipelago, because Thriller Bark isn't an island, it's a ship. It's a ship. Then the crew, of course, splits up after the events of Shaboni, so we don't count that because they're not as a group collective. not even like the majority of them. After that, we have number 11, which is Fisherman Island, when they get back together, because they already visited Shiboni before. So 11 is Fisherman Island, 12 is Punk Hazard, 13 is Dressrosa, 14 is Whole Cake Island, where most of the Straw Hats, including Jinbei, were at. And we skip Zoe because Zoe is alive. Zoe is a gigantic walking elephant. 15 is Wano Country. And then 16 is where we're going right now, whatever it is. So this next island that we're going to may actually have ties to a world government or potentially Emu. It may give us more insight on why 16 is an important number to the world government, and particularly the world nobles. So again, why is 16 so important to the world government and also the world nobles? I think the answer to this question, we have to ask another question. What is a world noble? And I think the answer to that question kind of explains why 16 is important to them. And there are 3 ways I can tackle this, I believe so. Number 1 is history. So we all know that about 900 years ago in the story of One Piece, the 20 royal families used to rule over their kingdoms until the powerful ancient kingdom came into prominence. The 20 royal families then formed an alliance to defeat this ancient kingdom, and then they created the new status quo of the current world. And with their main homeland being the Mary Jo's Pub on the Red Line, the descendants of these royal families then came to be known as the World Nobles / the Celestial Dragons. The Nefertari family are the only family to stay in the Blue Sea, so it was 19 royal families that went up to the Red Line specifically. However, 33 years ago, Saint Don Quixote Homing, himself and his family descended down from the Red Line to live among the common folks, among regular humans. As a result, his family did suffer a lot, to say the least, a lot at the hands of the common people. He himself admitted that he was naive. He did lose a lot of favor, all favor in fact, with the other world nobles. So even though Don Quixote Mosgard is still around in the Holy Land, and he is a solid lad, at least now he's a solid lad, is it possible that the whole family has lost favor with the vast majority of the world nobles, therefore they lost their power? Meaning that 18 families have real power in the Holy Land. And it might be the case here that 2 other families in the Holy Land have also been ousted. Let's say it involves the God Valley situation, which a lot of folks do theorize involve Blackbeard and Shanks, and I think correctly so. And a lot of folks also believe that Shanks' parents, at least one of them, has connections to Tenryubito. And folks believe the same thing about either Monkey D. Dragon's wife, Luffy's mother, of course, and or Garp's lover. And Garp, of course, was on God Valley, where potentially Emu used that weapon to also erase God Valley from the map, and now only 16 families only have real power in the Holy Land. So the 16 holy bullets or the 16 death rays might have been a representation of the world noble families that are in power currently that still reside in the Holy Land. The second way of viewing what is a world noble is, I think, their mindset. So once again, refer to chapter 763. If you take 7, you add it with 6, and you add it with 3, what do you get? So maybe there is more than meets the eye when it comes to this chapter, since the chapter numbers equal 16, and it's also referenced in that same chapter when that man lost his 2 kids. They were shot 16 times by a pistol. In this same chapter, we have the reveal of Trafalgar Law's real name, Trafalgar D. Water Law. It's the same chapter where Dofi's family descends down from the Red Line, and one thing that is brought up time and time again by the world nobles is their animosity, their clear distaste of being called, quote, human, end quote. They're supposed to be different, superior than humans. In the Viz version of the chapter, they even refer to themselves as dragonkind. And they even have ID chips to verify their celestial dragon hood. Like it's an Orwellian 2122 China that just has complete control over its people, toward even implanting chips into their bodies to verify their status and so on and so forth. And as you notice, for revealing that big secret, my credit score has gone down. It's a shame.
I'll never tell anyone, I swear.
That being said, the 16 might refer to themselves, the Tenryubito, as a, quote, race of people, end quote. And so what you could do is actually mix and match all of the races in the world of One Piece, so let's say you can get roughly around 16 total races in the world of One Piece. So humans, giants, ancient giants, Oni, mink, fishmen, merfolk, dwarves, Skypians, Barikans, Shandians, Lunarians, Long Arm Tribe, Long Leg Tribe, Snake Neck Tribe, and the Three-Eye Tribe. The thing here is that the race card, it's very tricky in our world, and it's very, very, very tricky in the world of One Piece. Because even though there's actually a list of races on the slave list that Duval gives to Sanji, in chapter 501, the actual tribes of One Piece are more than 16, and things kind of get wonky also given Oda's own statements. So for example, the Kuja of Amazon Lily could be a whole new race because they actually don't give birth to men, only women. But are the Kuja really that different than, let's say, humans? Oda himself has also stated that folks with horns, like for example Gecko Moria, they're actually humans. Some people just grow horns. Even though Kaido, when he was beating up on Yamato, he states that Yamato is an Oni, and Oni shouldn't be friends with humans. And then also, Big Mom has damn near every race in the world of One Piece, minus 3 races. We can tell number 1 are the Giants. Number 2 are Lunarians, based on her conversation with King the Wildfire, so there's one last missing race. But as far as I can tell, Big Mom in Totland doesn't have any Kuja women, or let's say any of the isolated races, like for example, members of the Torino tribe, the island where Chopper went to during the time skip. Or let's say the random East Blue Island that has these cannibals called the Kumate or the Kumates. I don't see any of these guys in Totland. Even though they're different tribes, they could all be under the branch of human. And then maybe, let's say you could combine the Skypians, the Barikans, and the Shandians into one angel race. There's even a race of mushroom people called the Kinokobito that has 4 legs, but they're just as small as dwarves. So things kind of get wonky there, but I do want to note to that where the Tenryubito themselves, in this chapter that equals the number 16, they constantly say, we're not human, we're like dragon kin. So let's say if there's not 16 races now, let's say that in the past there were 16 races, and the Tenryubito were that 16th race. But since they're human, ultimately speaking, because that's what they really are, maybe not, let's say, the Tenryubito, but what if it's specifically Imu, the individual that probably the celestial dragons are modeled off of? And this is where number 3 comes in on what a world noble is. What they are and what they do is, I think, clearly influence and directed, whether they know it or not, directed by Imu. And Imu is, of course, the one true king of the world. If Imu clearly has authority over them, the Gorosei, then they, Imu, have authority over all the world nobles. And if the race card is in play, then Imu might be of a unique race, a quote superior race that the Tenryubito themselves are modeling after, that they're claiming to be, but it's just Imu. And one of the things that I think is relatively unique when it comes to Imu, that I know a lot of folks associate with Imu, is the idea of Imu's extremely long life / immortality. You see, 22 years ago, we know that the 5 elders ordered the Buster Call on Ohara. And even though we see just silhouettes, the Gorosei look the same. The Gorosei look almost exactly the same back then as they do now, which is radical. And then, given the events of the Lucia Kingdom's destruction last chapter, a lot of folks are pointing to what happened with God Valley, right? God Valley happened 38 years ago. So Imu has arguably played a big hand in a lot of the events in the history of the world of One Piece. Recent and potentially even the far-reaching history of the world of One Piece, let's say going back to the Void Century. Imu essentially, when it comes to longevity in life, could be akin to like a Bleach captain. So now we have to think, how long? Are there any hints that we could look at that indicate to Imu's longevity and what Imu could be about? And there actually is. And this, woo!
Amazing!
This might be the nail in the coffin. So, the nail in the coffin. Just like how water is a code name for law, Imu also has a code name that refers to water, arguably speaking. All you have to do is flip Imu's name and you get Umi. And Umi in Japanese means ocean or sea. And now a new challenger has entered the fray. His name is Mont Blanc Nolan. And by the way, on a side note, for both Cricket and Nolan, according to Oda, they're both human, even though they have chestnuts that are growing out of their skull. How? How does that work? You know, whatever. Not important right now. Because what is important is chapter 228, when Nami is reading the logs of Mont Blanc Nolan from 400 years ago while they're talking to Cricket. She reads about an island called Vira or Vira, and this should be somewhat familiar to you because that island's name is actually brought up as a theoretical final location of the last lode/roll poneglyph in the Road to Laugh Tale, chapter 1053.1. Why would they bring up a random island like Vira or Vira? Why does that matter? It could be where the last low poneglyph is, potentially. And so it could be a location that we're going to real soon, maybe. However, it could also be some sort of fake out, some sort of false flag. Because when Nami is reading those logs, she reads about something called the Age of Cayenne, year 1120, June 21st. The words Cayenne Reki actually refer to a calendar that was apparently distributed by the Japanese Coast Guard during the Edo period. I'm gonna throw a maybe on that one because I'm not too familiar with Japanese history. Another way of reading that statement is the Age of the Sea Circle. Imu, Umi, Sea, Age of the Sea Circle. And based on the numbers on Nolan's log, the current timeline in the world of One Piece is the 16th century in the Age of the Sea Circle. The current timeline in the world of One Piece is the 16th century based on the Age of the Sea Circle.
Crazy.
That's kind of radical. Now, we have to assume here that the year 1120 is roughly when the Age of the Sea Circle started. It is possible that it did start before that, maybe. But was Imu around even back then? Who knows? Only time will tell. But the fact that Imu and the world nobles view themselves currently as the gods of the world of One Piece, therefore, the gods, the superior race of the current age of the world of One Piece, an age which, based on the Age of the Sea Circle, has spanned for 16 centuries. And if Imu's been around for that long, that is legacy. That is a millennium and a half worth of legacy. Woo! Woo! I told you. Big brain time.